Okay, we are going to edit this paragraph on comparing the White Witch and Satan. First, up here, let's go over what our notes were that the paragraph should be written from. So the main idea is that the White Witch and Satan are both crafty and tempting. Okay, we're going to support that idea with the Turkish delights and fruit, crafty questions, twisting sin to look like good, incentivizing others to sin, and then our conclusion should repeat and reflect that the White Witch and Satan are crafty and tempting. So let's see how this paragraph does. Satan and the White Witch are both crafty and tempting. Okay, it's not fancy, but we did it. In the 3rd chapter of Genesis, Satan tempted the first human beings to sin with a delicious-looking fruit. The 3rd chapter of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I'm noticing, I think the person meant to say in the 3rd chapter, so I'm going to try to do a little editing here, and this should have in the 3rd chapter of, hold on, now I gotta go back to my thing. Okay. In the 3rd chapter of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, the White Witch lured Edmund, one of the first people in Narnia, using a dangerously delicious dessert. Okay, let's stop there for a minute. You notice that number 1, that the title of the book is underlined correctly and capitalized. And then you see some other underlined words, delicious and dangerously delicious. Okay, these are underlined because this student is showing me that he has a quality adjective here. Delicious, describing fruit. Delicious and looking actually work together as an adjective here, so we should really have a little hyphen here. I can't get it to do it. A little hyphen line there. Okay, so there we have it. Delicious looking fruit and dangerously delicious dessert. This is interesting. Actually, this dangerously describes how delicious it was, making it an adverb. It is an ly adverb. An adverb can describe a verb or an adjective, and then delicious describes dessert. So already this student has made sure I have 2 quality adjectives and a adverb. Make sure when you do yours, you have yours underlined as well. Okay? Now, if you look right back up here, this student went straight from the outline and said I'm supposed to support the crafty and tempting by the Turkish delight in fruit. We see that's the very next thing he did. And I bet you anything, next we're going to look at crafty questions. We're going to write sentences about crafty questions. If you look, this paragraph is awfully long. It's always better to use shorter paragraphs, so I'm going to tell this student probably, like I said, I'm kind of doing this as I go because I think it's easier to teach that way, that yes, I want him to start a new paragraph here, okay? So that's going to be our first new paragraph. Always break things up into lots of paragraphs. People like reading smaller paragraphs. Okay, manipulative inquisitiveness was utilized by Satan, while the White Witch was constantly questioning, fishing for information. Okay, so here we've got a little bit almost of a contrast, but once again, we're right backed up here to crafty questions. And he says, you know, I thought about this and I reflected, and I feel like that Satan used all these, well, why did God say as manipulative? But the White Witch was constantly just looking for information. So he's making a little bit of a contrast, saying Satan was being manipulative, where the White Witch really was looking for information she needed to do cruel things. Very good, reflecting and staying with our outline, but adding your thoughts. Okay? Let's keep going. Just as the White Witch twisted the terrible truth about herself to make herself, her house, and her magic seem safe and inviting, Satan made eating the forbidden fruit look desirable. So we have an easy transition right into our 3rd point of twisting sin to look like good. Okay, we've got these questions, and they're going right into that twisting sin to look like good. So we're going to keep it in the same paragraph there, and they made it look desirable. Then I bet we're going to get into incentivizing. The two villains both incentivized their targets to do the sins they wanted them to do. Okay? This is kind of a new idea too. Like I said, these kind of flowed together. But let's go ahead and tell this student that we want a new paragraph here. Okay? And let me find where it was. Right here, this means new paragraph. Okay, let me go back to my pointer. The two villains both incentivized their targets to do the sins they wanted them to do. Many times in the Bible, Satan tries to reward people to do wrong. Satan even tells Jesus he can own the whole world, which Jesus really already had, if he only bowed to Satan. The White Witch paid people to catch and turn in any humans. She also told Edmund he could be king and have all the Turkish delight in the world if he returned with his brothers and sisters. Okay, little editing here. This is a comma. If you look, this is a complete independent sentence, and this is. So I need to tell this student we need a period, and it's going to be hard to do, but 3 lines under this means capitalize it, but this program's hard to do. Okay? So I am liking, though, that this student thought, and that's what you start with your easy outline, and you can see this student very much followed this outline, and we are now in incentivizing, but then thought farther, and he thought of a time that Satan even tried to incentivize Jesus himself. So this is what writing is for you to think and really make these connections and then share it with others, okay? So we have the incentivizing here. We have an example of Jesus, and we have the example of the White Witch incentivizing
Jesus.
Incentivizing, well, it wasn't exactly people, but fawns to catch and turn in any humans, but we know what the student meant there. Okay, she also incentivized Edmund, and this is stated by the students. So we've got multiple examples of incentivization here. Okay, she also incentivized him if he would return with his brothers and sisters. Now we're looking for this conclusion. The White Witch and Satan share many characteristics, including cunningness and manipulativeness. And this student feels that cunningness and manipulativeness reflect the same thing as crafty and tempting without repeating it. I would agree. Cunning is a synonym to crafty, and manipulative is the same thing as tempting. Okay, I hope this will help you in writing your paragraphs.